Dr. Smith, and please give him your full attention.
Thank you. Welcome, and first off, the thanks shouldn't come to me at all, quite the opposite. The thanks should go to Joe, to Joe's team, for creating an idea, for creating a concept that is now 5 years in the making. So all of you are already a beneficiary of Joe and the incredible work that they've done. So before we start, please give them a round of applause for making this possible. It's awesome. The next people you should thank are yourselves. And I mean that very sincerely. It takes an awful lot to get up and go to school anyhow. It takes an awful lot to be engaged in all the other stuff you're involved in, sports and clubs and all the stuff you're already doing, jobs, etc. On top of that, you've taken time out to come here. You've taken that first step of action, and that's fantastic because that's where it all begins. So I would look around, I would network, I would spend time getting to know the people in this room because you guys are really the future. You guys are the future of where this thing goes. Okay? I'm going to tell you some stories. They're in the past. You guys are the stories in the present and in the future. It's up to you guys where this whole field goes, where this whole space in the area of social enterprise and social entrepreneurship and UCREW go in Cincinnati and in the broader state of Ohio. First important details, the Reds are still up 1-0. Feel free to interrupt it.
It's tied. Sorry.
See, that's the problem with technology. It was 1-0. We'll try and keep it that way. All right. So what my job tonight is to simply provide you a quick overview of what this space and what this area is. I called that, what's the easiest? Perfect. I called it opportunities and challenges. So what are the opportunities in social entrepreneurship? Ironically, they're all around you. They're literally sitting in front of you. You are eating social enterprise as you sit here. There's a wonderful organization called Venice on Vine. If you don't know about them, they're located over the Rhine. And they do two things. They make pizza and they provide job training. They're a nonprofit organization that helps people get job training skills and makes pizza by doing it. Okay? So it's all around you. Now, what does opportunity look like around the world? On the left-hand side, there's a picture of a woman named Clara. Clara lives in rural Guatemala. Clara, in this picture, is literally giving an eye exam. 3 years ago, Clara was a homemaker, had no future, no hope for a better future. Today, she literally trains hundreds of women entrepreneurs who go out to rural areas of Guatemala and sell eyeglasses, water filtration systems, solar lamps. Okay? That's the opportunity that people can now see, bring insight to the blind. The right-hand side, that is Volcano Pacaya. Okay? And that's not erupting a little bit. By the time we got to dinner, we had hiked the volcano. By the time we got to dinner that night, Clara called and said, "We're so glad to see you." We're like, "Oh, we're thankful to be here." They're like, "No, we think you guys were the last people on the volcano before it erupted." Okay? And I don't use this to be literal, but I use this as metaphor. This is the kind of challenge in this space. Incredible opportunity. Incredible challenge. And then when we do this, sometimes we have to adapt. So here's the adaptation we made. We saw a volcano explode. I got a call the next morning that said, "I don't mean to alarm you, but up to 3 inches of volcanic ash are going to fall." They've closed the airport, and the entire 3-region area is in a declared state of emergency. No problem. That's a nice wake-up call. Instead, we decide, okay, we'll do the next best thing. We'll hop in a van and drive 7 hours to El Salvador. We'll fly out of San Salvador. Only to Google that and find out it is, quote-unquote, the most dangerous city in the world. Terrific plan. This is the adaptation we're making. And even that's an okay idea until a tropical storm breaks out. And we literally have roads closed everywhere. So you continue to see obstacles, challenges. These will get in your way. Push on. Okay? Right-hand side, we were in Nepal earlier this year. A bus comes over, cuts us right off. We're working with an organization that builds schools in the developing world. The guy gets out of his bus and just walks away. And he has closed the entire street. There's no way around. They've blocked every major artery. There's a bus strike. We're in Pokhara, about 5 hours from Kathmandu. The only good news is they have blocked us inside where the airport is. No problem, just an opportunity. Hop on Buddha Air, fly right out to Kathmandu, no problem, okay? And so we use these as simple opening stories to say, look, this space is hard. It's much easier to just build a normal business. It's much easier to just build a normal nonprofit. You're not going to do that, right? You're going to take the challenging way that says, we're going to build both social value and economic value. And so that's where we're headed. So what is this thing called social entrepreneurship? The old adage, give a man a fish, teach him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. Well, social entrepreneurship is not just about giving a man a fish. Okay, it's not even about teaching a man to fish. According to Bill Drayton, who founded Ashoka, a big support organization, says it's about revolutionizing the fishing industry. And what does he mean by that? He means, look, it's not okay that people don't know how to fish. Why don't people know how to fish? Why don't they have boats? Why are we only talking about men and not women? Why don't we fundamentally begin to understand what are the challenges that have got us into this place? And only then can we revolutionize, can we tackle this in an innovative, systemic way. So, what we're going to try and do here is do two things. We're going to try and push together two words that individually are complicated. Social and entrepreneurship. On their own, they're problematic enough. We're going to push them together and really make it interesting. Okay? So what we'll do is start with this notion of what is entrepreneurship. If I ask my own students, the very first thing that comes in mind, so it's generally something like someone who owns their own business. Terrific. That's a nice starting point. I'm going to encourage us to go further and think about entrepreneurship in two different ways. First, as a mindset. Right? We don't often think about entrepreneurship this way, but as a way of thinking. Okay? So what does it mean to have an entrepreneurial mindset? It means you'll have tolerance for risk and ambiguity. Okay? Most classes, you know exactly what you're going to do. Here you come to UCREW and they tell you exactly what you're going to do. In our class in creativity, we hand you a blank sheet of paper and say, that's your syllabus. Okay? It's discomforting. For our whole lives, we've learned to learn a certain way. We'll give you the information, you give it back to us. That doesn't work in entrepreneurship. Okay? In entrepreneurship, it's about being opportunity obsessed, about going and finding a problem, and then going and trying to figure out how to solve it. And try it again and again and again until you solve it. So it's a mindset. But it's also a set of activities. Okay, so as they put up your agenda, sure it was to identify an idea, but you got to do something about that. Otherwise, it's just an idea. Okay? So what do entrepreneurs do? They identify, evaluate, and develop opportunities. And it's important because rarely is the initial idea your end opportunity. Okay? So as you go through this process, recognize that it's likely your idea will continue to ebb and flow and be shaped, not just by you, but by others. Not just by you, but by the marketplaces you put it out there. Okay? And so there is this constant evolution, this constant action that goes on. All right? What else do entrepreneurs do? They create resources. They marshal them. Okay? And when we think of this, we often think, oh, sure, they have to get some money. Yeah, of course they need money. They need financial capital. But it's not just that. And in the social space, probably even more so than the sort of traditional entrepreneurship space, it's even more than that. Beyond financial capital, they need human capital, people like you guys. Okay? They need social capital, the relationships, the social networks that help get things done. They need political capital. Okay? So we're going to go on and push on different forms of capital. And then, of course, lastly, they create value for themselves and, of course, for others. So if we begin to think about entrepreneurship this way, it's some doing and it's some action. Now we just have to add this social side. Okay, and I'm going to cop out here. I'm not going to give you an answer. I'm not going to give you a definition. All right? The social side, I'm going to use it as you might when you say social problem, when you say social justice. Okay? And so here I suppose I'll defer to the Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart. He said, I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. Now he's talking about pornography, and we're probably not going to deal with, I've not seen the rest of the agenda, but we're probably not going to deal with that a lot in here. Okay, but we are going to use the example. I don't know how to define social, but I know it when I see it. Okay, let me give you an example. All right, in the social space, we tackle enormous problems. Okay, so quickly, show of hands. How many people think poverty is a problem? Okay, hunger, inadequate education, okay, global warming. We can go on and on. We may not get consensus on every single one, but what we see if you look around here, if you look around the state, you look around the world, there is generally consensus on where the problem is. Okay, so in the social sector, it's not so hard to identify what the problem is, and we generally have some consensus around that. Now we've got to tackle those problems. So, please don't write this down. Innovative solutions to persistent social problems, particularly those that are marginalized or poor, that create social value through sustainable systemic change. I am certain we're not doing tests, quizzes in here, at least not on this. All right, let's break it down. Innovative solutions. If you remember nothing else, innovative solutions to persistent social problems. How do I take the best of entrepreneurship? How do I take imagination, creativity, innovation, and apply it not for personal gain, but for social gain? Apply it to tackle problems of hunger and poverty in inner city education. That's what we're trying to do. Innovative solutions to persistent social problems. We'll go on and unpack the rest in just a minute. But let me take this apart here just for a moment. How many of you have heard of an organization called Teach for America? Okay, Teach for America was founded in the late 1980s by a woman named Wendy Kopp. Wendy had written her senior thesis when she was at Princeton University and decided that she was going to do something about this. See, you'll see a theme here over and over again. People go and they take action. She wrote a paper that wasn't enough. What she had tackled, the issue she had come across, is what they call the inequality gap in education. Okay? It's the fact that the quality of your public education is largely dictated by one thing and one thing primarily: where you happen to be born. And what did you have to do with that? Well, not so much. Okay? And so Wendy said this is ludicrous, that if you were born in the right place, you have wonderful, high-quality public education. And if you're born in the wrong place, the wrong part of the U.S. is where they started, you may have very poor quality education. Okay, and she said, this is ludicrous. I need to change the playing field. I need to make it more even, more level. Okay, so what was innovative about what Wendy did? What Wendy did is she went to colleges and universities around the country and encouraged the best and the brightest to go and teach. Now, lots of people want to become teachers, but many, many more don't. And one of the reasons they don't, among other things, is it doesn't pay very well. Okay? Not right or wrong, it just is. Wendy said, that's okay, we'll deal with it. We'll only ask people to make a 2-year commitment. And that's what she did. She gathered the best and the brightest and said, we're going to put them in underperforming, low-quality schools and help get kids back on grade level. We're going to close that achievement gap. We're going to close that gap based on where you happen to be born. And that's what she went off and tackled. Okay? And everyone said, Wendy, nice little idea, one small inconvenient problem. You're never going to get anyone to do this. Okay? They turn away about 90% of their applicants. From Harvard, from Stanford, from Duke, from Miami, from UC, from all over the state and all over the country. They turn away thousands of students every year that want to go do this. And what these students do that do get the opportunities, they go and they get kids back on grade level. They work like crazy to get their reading scores up, to get their test scores up. They do all sorts of innovative issues to try and tackle this social problem of inequality of education. Now, yeah, that's fine. Now, there's an issue here, okay? Innovative solutions, persistent social problems. If we go on, it says, particularly to those that are marginalized or poor. All right, I've got two different things up here. One comes from the UN Millennium Development Goals. The second from the Declaration of Independence. You could add all major world religions, and it would look very similar. Some combination of all people are created equal. Okay, now we've got a problem. If all people are created equal, how come people are marginalized? All people are created equal. We just said so. Lots of people say so. But then what happens? They become marginalized. They get dropped into systems. Economic systems, political systems, gender systems, cultural systems, religious systems, and somehow the playing field gets unequal. Go back to Wendy Cobb. You were born equal and you were dropped into the educational system. Now you're unequal. Okay? This is where social entrepreneurs say, not problem, opportunity. That's what I'm going to go tackle, the inequality, the injustice, this marginalization that happens. Now, a couple of things about this field. You'll hear different things come up, so it's helpful just to sketch this out real quick. The field of social entrepreneurship is defined in at least two ways. One of these is earned income. That is nonprofits doing for-profit strategies. Okay? Nonprofits doing for-profit strategies. They've been doing it for a long time. Okay? I work at a university. It is a nonprofit organization. I can assure you we are revenue generating. Okay? Ask any of your older siblings. Ask your parents who have had to pay for college education. I can assure you we generate revenue. All right? And increasingly, nonprofit organizations that have historically relied on donations are encouraged to generate some revenue on their own, to find some ways to become what they would say more self-sufficient, more self-sustaining. Okay? So Venice on Vine, the pizza you were just eating, is no longer just relying on donations to give people job skills. Quite the opposite. They're selling you pizza, and in the process generating revenue that they can plow back into the organization to help train more people, to help train people better. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. The other is social innovation. And here we'll see a couple of examples of that, but these tend to be truly innovative ideas, products, services that truly change the game in some way. I think there's another issue here on the bottom, which is this notion of, are you a for-profit or are you a non-profit, is increasingly becoming blurred. Okay? For-profit companies, Procter & Gamble, right here in Cincinnati, is increasingly doing more and more socially good things. Pure water tablets, a wonderful example to have clean drinking water. Social organizations are increasingly doing more and more revenue generating for-profit things. So you have this real blurring of what this space is. Don't worry about it. Don't worry, this person is, this person is not. Don't care, okay? Just recognize that in almost all organizations you have some combination of economic value and social value being created, and those are getting pushed together more and more. Now, let's distinguish these just for a moment, the distinction between commercial entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. All right, commercial entrepreneurship. Our friends Procter & Gamble, they go and start this little soap company, okay? 100, 200 years ago, all right? When they did that, they went out and they sold a bunch of soap, okay? And in the process, they created a lot of economic profit. But guess what else they created? Hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs. And that's terrific. That's an incredible social benefit. Okay, it's just not the reason they're in business. Not right or wrong, it's just not why they're in business. Okay, many nonprofit organizations would love to create as many jobs as P&G has. They can't. Okay, so that's one of the key distinctions, is your focus. The social entrepreneur flips the equation upside down. Don't know why all of our examples are going to come back to food, but at least for now they will. How many of you, I'm going to prove to you that you've also supported yet another social enterprise. How many of you have ever eaten a Girl Scout cookie? Ah, terrific. What does selling cookies have to do with Girl Scouts? Don't have any idea. I truly don't have any idea. But it has an awful lot to do with advancing the mission of Girl Scouts, with giving them revenues to continue to advance it. Now, they're actually trying to integrate it more, okay? But the idea is P&G generates economic value primarily, and as a byproduct creates social value. Social organizations, the Girl Scouts, create social value, value for society, and often use economic means, the sale of Girl Scout cookies, to help advance that. Okay? So it's not a better, worse, it's not a, but this space helps us to distinguish that. Let me make one other quick distinction, and then we'll go to our first video. The distinction is between charity and social entrepreneurship. Okay? Please don't walk out of here saying, oh, he doesn't like charity. No, please, that's not the case. The building we're sitting in, the American Red Cross, is a terrific charity. Okay? Hurricane Katrina hits. Okay? Agencies like the Red Cross are the first to respond. Okay? Hurricane Katrina hits New Orleans, 2005. What do the people of the lower 9th Ward need that night? They need food. They need shelter. They need clothing. I'll tell you what they don't need. They don't need me or you or anyone else coming saying, I've got a long-term sustainable solution. No. They need food, shelter, and clothing, and they need it now. That's charity. It's terrific. Okay? Social entrepreneurship just takes a different approach. It looks further down the channel. It says, how do we begin to attack long-term sustainable problems? How do we build organizations that take a longer-term view and get much more at the root cause of the problem rather than just sort of the near-term issue? Now, what I'd like to do, technology willing, is give you one example. This is a not-for-profit, okay? The good news, we only have 4 more videos to get through, so that should be perfectly handy. Let's take this example real quick. Let's just try and capture some of the key points. If you couldn't see the video, you couldn't hear it, okay, don't worry about it. Okay. Victoria Hale, a woman decides, this is ludicrous, people are dying of a disease to which we have a known cure, but the pharmaceutical companies aren't making it. Okay? The Indian government steps in and says, if you can get this right, we'll distribute it for free. I will tell you this, if you come up with a social enterprise idea and FedEx comes to you and says, we'll deliver it for free, do it and do lots of it. Okay? That's an incredible sort of value that comes along. Okay? So there are all these players that come together around one idea, which is to try and help people, cure people out of orphan diseases. Okay? So, next slide. Okay, let me do one more far-flung example, then we'll come back close to home. There's a guy named Muhammad Yunus. Okay, Muhammad Yunus was the founder of Grameen Bank. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. And if you hear anything about social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, inevitably sooner or later in the conversation you'll hear about him. Yunus came to the U.S. He was educated. He got his PhD at Vanderbilt. Okay, was studying and teaching here in the U.S. when Bangladesh gained its independence. Yunus goes back home to his home country. He's teaching at Chittagong University, okay? But he's going out on the streets and people are literally dying. Bangladesh is engrossed in one of the worst droughts of all time, okay? And Yunus says, look, there's this big disconnect between this macroeconomic theory I'm teaching in the classroom and what's going on the streets. I've got to do something about this. So he gathers together a group of villagers. He gets 42 villagers in the nearby village of Jopra. And he asks them one simple question that will forever change his life. He says, what will it take to get you out of poverty? The 42 people think about it for a little bit, and they come back and they give him this answer, $27. Yunus says, if true, there's no better use of my money. But if true, and if we're going to call this social enterprise, 2 things have to be true. Okay? First, if he gives them the money, he's got to be able to get it back. Okay? It would be fine for him to just give the money, and that would be terrific. But if he gives the money, if he lends the money and gets it back, he can relend it, and he can relend it, and he can relend it again and again and again. Yunus is recognized as a banker to the poor. Now imagine you came up with that idea. You go knock on Fifth Third store. Hey! You're missing a target market. You're missing a segment of the population. You need to be lending money to poor people. They think you're nuts. Okay? In fact, Eunice goes so far as to say, whatever the traditional bank was going to do, I was going to do the opposite. Okay? You don't loan to poor people, I will. You ask for collateral, I won't. Okay? And so the first thing that had to happen, he had to get the money back. The second thing, it actually had to do what it was intended to do. It had to get people out of poverty. Okay? There's lots of things going on the topic of microcredit and microfinance. Some good, some bad. Okay? But it's a wonderful example because it points out two things. Number one, more than 60% of his borrowers have not only gotten out of poverty, but have actually become shareholders in Remain. Number two, the payback rate. The percentage of people that pay back, about 98.5%. Higher than we can do in our own country. Okay, so this incredible example of shifting, creating an innovative solution to a problem. Right? It takes $1 to make $1. The only problem is no one was going to give him the first dollar. Eunice said, I can solve that. Okay, and so that's one example. Here's an example a little closer to home. How many people know what Tom's Shoes is? Better yet, how many are wearing Tom's Shoes? Because I saw several in here as we walked in. Okay, Tom's Shoes. Wonderful for-profit example of social entrepreneurship. Blake Mykoski, the founder of Tom's, came to Miami about 3 years ago. And as we were talking to him, one of the things that Blake says over and over again is, look, I had made some money in a business, and I had a choice to make. He had sold a business for about $1.5 million. He said, I could either give all that money away and have it create some social value, or do what he decided to do. He started a business that creates social value. I buy one, I give one. I buy one, I give one. Okay, that's the Tom Shoes model. You buy a pair of shoes, he gives away a pair of shoes. So he said, rather than just giving the money away and whatever happens, happens, instead I created an engine of social value that generates social value again and again and again. Okay, again, another wonderful example of how we tackle this topic. Now, I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about our examples of things that students have done. Students just like you. All right, many of our students come from the great state of Ohio. Many of them come right here from the high schools that you guys go to. Okay, about 6 years ago, we looked around at this opportunity, and we said, look, there's no one doing anything in social entrepreneurship at the undergraduate level. I said, terrific. Sounds like opportunity. Harvard, Stanford, Duke, some other schools at the graduate level. So I called a guy named Greg Dees, who was down at Duke, and I said, Greg, what does undergraduate social entrepreneurship look like? He said, I have no idea. No one's doing it. I said, perfect. So we took our focus on undergraduate students, our focus is on a business school, and pushed it in a very specific direction. This is the new place that we get to call home one more. And we said, let's take an entrepreneurial approach to building a program in social entrepreneurship. Now remember, 6 years ago, people thought we were crazy. They didn't know what this thing was. Okay? So what do we do? What do entrepreneurs do? We identified an opportunity to build a world-class program in undergraduate social entrepreneurship. We marshaled some resources. A good friend of mine, who had been very successful in the business world, said, look, I don't know what you're talking about, but here's some seed capital. He said, that's not a donation. Use that to get the organization started. I want to see you continue to, over and over again, generate more and more social value. Okay? And then to create some value. So we tried to do that through teaching, research, and outreach. One of the first things we did, I sent an email. We were down, and remember, we're trying to build this program. No one knows what it is, and we've got two options. We're trying to create awareness. Okay? And on the phone with our donor, I said, okay, we can bring one of two people to campus. The first was Muhammad Yunus. Now, how many people, imagine we put up signs. Imagine there were signs around your high school that said, Muhammad Yunus is coming to speak in the auditorium. How many people do you think would show up? Yeah, I thought 3. I'm not sure. I might be off a little bit, but it wasn't a big number. And if we're trying to generate awareness, it's really not the number. Okay? Instead, we decided Bono was the guy. Okay, now Bono at the time was co-time man of the year with Bill Gates. He was the lead singer of this little band called U2. And we said, cool, now all we have to do is get Bono to Oxford, Ohio, and we'll be all set. Okay, well that's what we tried to do. And lo and behold, we said, he's a heck of a humanitarian, is he a social entrepreneur? He and his wife had started an apparel company. The focus of the apparel company was economic development in Africa, and they were doing it through the apparel industry. So we emailed him. And guess what happened when we sent the email? Precisely. Exactly what will happen the first time you send your email, and the second time, and the third time. Okay? So we sent a few more emails and nothing happened. Finally, we pick up the phone. I called this woman named Bridget Rousseau in New York, and I said, Bridget, look, I don't care if you tell me to get lost, but I think there's an idea here. You guys are doing this thing in Africa, and we're building this thing called social entrepreneurship. They look and feel. I mean, they even had the Give a Man a Fish thing right on their website. I was like, come on, this has to work. So I didn't get your email. I'm going to email you, and then I'm going to ask you for your cell phone number, and then I'm going to call you every single day until you start rolling this out to college campuses all over the country. And then we had this little lecture. Remember, I was worried about 3 people from Muhammad Yunus. We turned away over 500 people when they gave the lecture on social entrepreneurship. And Bono's wife, Ali, was there to talk about what this meant, what this space was. And so think about these as ways that you can create buzz about the topic. So that's what our students did. In 6 weeks, they took an idea and turned it into reality. 6 weeks later, they had to convince the CEOs and Bono's wife that this was an idea that had traction, and then they scaled it. We rolled it out to college campuses all over the country, and then our students engaged in all sorts of experiences around this topic. Okay, now let me dissect that a little bit, including our lead student actually went to the Clinton Global Initiative, was on a panel with a guy named Pramal Shah, who was the founder of Kiva, president of the university, and our student, talking about this idea, okay? So here's a little bit about the business model. What our students do, remember we're talking about social and economic value creation. That's all right, no worries. The first thing that we do is we create social value. As our students build a business model, much like what you're doing, we create social value by the education of how to do it, okay? Second thing we do. That's all right. I can do it. The second thing we do is we create social value by selling T-shirts made in Africa. Okay. For us, it's social value. For the folks in Africa, it's economic value. But from our vantage point, it was social value. Third thing we do is we create a little economic value. This is our Girl Scout cookies. Okay. We don't just sell it at cost. We sell it at a slight profit. And every time we do that profit, we turn and plow it back into our program. It doesn't go to me, doesn't go to our students, no one gets rich off of the program. Rather, we put it in funding to do things like bring Blake Mykoski to campus, okay? Allow our students to go work in Nicaragua and South Africa and all these kinds of places. Okay, so it's our own social enterprise. And it's an idea that was really created by students. Yeah, that's a little bit about where we went. We scaled the experience. It's been on over 20 campuses. And we were trying to generate a little PR in Atlanta and Time and Business Week and Financial Times and a whole bunch of other places. Remember, it all started with an idea. It all started with a couple of students who said, we can do this. We can tackle this problem. We can challenge it. Okay. Here's a second example. There's a guy named Greg Van Kirk. Greg is a social entrepreneur. This past year he was named the Latin American Social Entrepreneur of the Year. If you remember back to the first picture of the woman doing eyeglasses, this is Greg's organization. He helps create access to rural villagers for things they need. Eyeglasses, water buckets, solar lamps, cook stoves, all these kinds of things. And he does it through women entrepreneurs. They go out and they sell the things and they get a little bit of profit for doing it. Our students work side by side with them, doing market research, trying to figure out what the next product should be. Last summer they were down there and they were doing something on solar lamps. This summer they were down there doing things on drip irrigation. So they spent 8 weeks out in the field in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, South Africa, working with these women micro-entrepreneurs to try and push the program forward. Go another or two. Go one more. Okay. This is a guy by the name of John Wood. John Wood built an organization called Room to Read. I don't get any of the proceeds from his book, but if for no other reason, pick up his book to read it. It's called Leaving Microsoft to Change the World, and that's what he did. He left Microsoft and went and started building libraries. They've now built something like 1,100 libraries and 1,000 schools in the developing world. Okay, just a wonderful organization. John came and talked. Our students got really motivated. You want to see what students can do? In less than 1 month's time, our students went out and raised $38,000. And on the right-hand side, you see the foundation of the school in Nepal. That's what they did. They took action when they saw some social issues they wanted to do. Go one more. These last two are examples of how this is exploding around the world. Okay, we just finished a seminar. In fact, Joe was kind enough to come up and be a judge for us. We took Fulbright scholars from Afghanistan. Okay, again, think marginalized. The best and the brightest of Afghanistan, and put in their hands the tools of social entrepreneurship, of social enterprise. And over a 1-week period, they developed business models around how they're going to go back to their home country and rebuild around education, around healthcare, around community development banks. Okay? And this is what's possible through the work of social entrepreneurship. It's led us to some incredible places. I mean, it's led us all over the globe. It's led us to speaking engagements at Harvard and Stanford and Duke and all kinds of places. It's led us to some interesting awards along the way, which has been fine, but it's not why we do it. It's also led to a lot of recognition, okay? So this is not the reason you do this work. But if you don't look at this as potential development of your skill set, potentially of your career, we're not talking about resumes in here yet, but one day that will be an important issue for you. This is an incredible opportunity to say, I started a social enterprise, and here's where it took us. So if you remember, the social entrepreneurial approach was simply this: identify, evaluate, develop opportunities. That's what you guys are going to do. You guys get to pick. The Fulbright scholars from Afghanistan, we didn't say, fix this. No. They picked. You guys get to pick. Marshal the resources and then create the value. That's what you're going to engage in. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. The poet Robert Frost said, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And see, to Frost, that was a good thing. But to us, that isn't a good thing. Okay, we don't want this road to be less traveled by. We want it to be more traveled. More traveled by students, more traveled by social enterprises, more traveled by the social value that you create. And only then, in the immortal words of Frost, will it have made all the difference. Thank you. Sure. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I'm going to wait. I'm going to switch them again so that we can get the other cities as well.
Of course.
So, hey, everybody viewing. If any of your students have any questions, can you have them come up to the microphone, and we'll talk about it on chat. Okay, so hold on a second.
So the first question is always the most difficult. Just come. Because if you don't understand, that gets really
Here, Phil. You could turn this around. All right. Yep, we're going to turn it this way so they can see you. All right.
Let me answer one question that often comes up for our students. What did our students know about entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship before they started? All over the map, and it was generally not very much. Okay, so some of you inevitably do terrific. That's going to help you. Many people don't know a thing about it. Our students didn't know a thing about it. Don't worry. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship, right? You kind of make it up as you go. You test, you try, you experiment, you put it out there, you see what happens. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't, we keep going. Okay. Well, you saw great entrepreneurial skill sets just in this presentation. The video. Awesome. Yes, question. No, it looked like a question.
I don't know what you said.
All right.
Tell us what you said. Okay.
Who's ready to raise the first question? It might even be a consent. Oh, look at that. If you wait long enough, someone will ask it.
Well, I'm wondering, social entrepreneurship, did you say they could be nonprofits or
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if the social entrepreneurship makes a profit, but then they put that money back into entrepreneurship, is it considered a nonprofit?
Yeah, there are, that sometimes the language gets in our way here. Okay, we talk about for-profits and we talk about non-profits. Okay, a profit is just what's left over. We sell some things, we generate some revenues from sales. We have some costs, we pay people, we pay the materials, whatever, and something's left over. The only difference between a for-profit and a not-for-profit is what do you do with that. The for-profit often distributes it out to the people that own the company. Okay? The non-profit has what they call a non-institutional industry. It just means no one can own a non-profit. No one owns a part of Miami University. No one owns a part of UGIVE or UCREW. Okay, so any revenues that are generated simply go back in to help fund and drive the organization. As I said, nearly all universities, many universities in the state, are not-for-profit organizations. But I can assure you, it costs money to go there, tuition, and that is revenue that helps the organization do more of what they're doing. The Girl Scout cookies example again. They're a not-for-profit organization, but all those dollars of cookie sales and all those leftover dollars, what we would call profit in the business, go back into the organization. So yeah, it can be anywhere along that line. What I did say is, increasingly, even the traditional nonprofit organizations are being encouraged to try and create some business models, some business lines, some revenue-generating activities to help. Excellent question.
All right, so we have a question from Toledo. Where are you?
Go ahead. Hi. I was wondering, who has been some of the most important people in your social entrepreneurship journey?
In terms of my own journey?
Yes.
I've identified a couple of them. So you saw Muhammad Yunus. I think Yunus is one person that's pointed to. I think if you look in the States, and particularly if you look in inner cities in particular, the wonderful guy by the name of Bill Strickland, who started a model that's in Pittsburgh. It's called the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild and the Bidwell Training Center. And what he did was he helped all the kids who were failing out of school and all the welfare moms and created not decent jobs, created world-class opportunities for them. He partnered with for-profit companies. He got them, the Heinz company built them $1 million kitchen and put these people back to work, okay? Bill Strickland has expanded his model and is in fact doing something right here in Cincinnati. So if you want to see firsthand the work of an incredible social entrepreneur, someone like Bill Strickland is terrific. John Wood I also referenced, so he's written a book, he's got a few videos that are out there, absolutely terrific, about someone who's taken a business-like approach to solving social problems.
All right, the next question is from Cleveland.
Okay, you could talk right to me.
Okay, hold on, it's getting pulled up.
The name of the UCREW shirts there.
He has one from last year.
All right, so I personally believe that volunteering communally and having us all come in here to join and give charity is a great thing. Why do you want to bring in the evils of capitalism to it?
Sorry, I didn't hear the end part of that.
Why do you want to bring in the evils of capitalism to something as beautiful as volunteering?
I suppose I'll take it this way. It need not be either or. Why must it be we either volunteer or, according to your words, we do the evils of capitalism? I think we've got plenty of examples that suggest these can be done both and. I think Tom Shu's a wonderful example. I think Muhammad Yunus is a wonderful example of how you use businesses to address social problems. So I suppose the issue that I would think about is how do we begin to broaden our thinking about it's not either or, it's not one or the other. Many organizations have both volunteers and paid staff, and that increases their sustainability. It allows them to help more people, and in the end, what we're really trying to do is create the most social value. This is one mechanism to do it.
Anybody, any other questions? Cincinnati, you guys have any questions?
That was the best answer you could give right then.
Oh, I was hoping for more.
Yes.
All right, no other questions from Cincinnati? Oh, we have one. Going to walk up here and see if they can hear you in the other cities. So here, well.
Okay, now.
Where are you at? Okay. How many of these starting nonprofits have you helped with?
How many of them?
Of these starting nonprofits have you helped with?
In terms of the starting of the nonprofits, there's an awful lot of work that both we and our students do in terms of helping to incubate those. One of the best examples of that is right here in Cincinnati, where we have created what's called a social enterprise hub. So it's called Flywheel. And the idea behind Flywheel is that a nonprofit anywhere along the way who wants to move toward a social enterprise model can come for a first workshop. I don't know what it is. Can come for business consulting. We've got an idea, we're not quite sure how to take it. Can come for operational help. We've got a business up and running. We think we can build it, grow it, expand it. So literally hundreds of these organizations over time that we've both worked with, consulted with, helped build organizations around. And many of our students are now moving into this space in terms of actual careers. So we have students working in organizations like Partners in Health, which is a wonderful organization by Paul Farmer. We have students working down in Guatemala, Community Enterprise Solutions, IDEO, and the list goes sort of on and on. Thank you. It's a wonderful question.
All right, so I think that's all the questions that we have. We are going to take a 10-minute break, so if you guys want to go and walk around, get some energy back. We're going to Skype with someone after this, another person. But can you guys see him? It's a little dark. Was it good with the lights off? Yeah, can we turn the lights back off? Columbus, are you good? Cleveland's good. Jamie? Okay. So, hi, Robbie. Oh, you're muted still. Let's unmute you. Oh, wait, maybe not. Wait, can you try talking again, Robbie?
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to turn you around so you can see. This is Cincinnati. It's kind of dark in here.
Wow, a lot of people.
Yep, and then you have Columbus, Cleveland, Toledo, and Dayton. I don't know where Dayton is. Dayton's missing, but we can go ahead and start. So do you want to tell them a little bit about what your life currently is like with Cellphones for Soldiers, what you guys have been doing in the past year or two?
Basically, Cellphones for Soldiers has grown into a $2 million enterprise. We basically bring in about $2 million per year. What we do, we're still recycling cell phones, but we primarily focus on, we're trying to move now into, we just started a new offshoot called Helping Heroes Home, which is still under the Cellphones for Soldiers umbrella.
We'll get back to it in a second.
And what we're trying to aim at is a lot of soldiers are coming home from the wars now. The Iraq War just ended, and so there are a lot of veterans trying to get back into their lives, their regular lives. And so what we are trying to do is to support them coming home. So what we started to do is we're taking the used cell phones that we're getting from Cellphones for Soldiers, but we're also using that to pay for hardships. Like we paid off a guy's, he was trying to get his storage. If you've ever seen Storage Wars, that was about to happen to him. And so what we did was we came in and we paid off all of his storage bills so that he could get his storage stuff out. Now we're still doing Cellphones for Soldiers. I'll be traveling actually to Seattle for Veterans Day. The Seattle Seahawks are supporting Cellphones for Soldiers, and so they're going to have a collection. And the same day that I'm actually going to be in Seattle, my sister is going to be in Miami for the Miami Dolphins game. So we'll be all around the NFL, and we'll be all around the country supporting Cellphones for Soldiers. So it's pretty amazing what's going on right now. It's still growing, but there is a lot of competition nowadays, and there's a lot of other organizations that are also recycling cell phones. So we're always trying to expand and trying to find new ways to donate phones. Can you all hear me okay? Okay.
Someone muted me, sorry. So what you're saying is kind of it's important to evolve your idea and see what's else is going on and make changes when they're necessary.
Exactly, and you always need to, when you're starting an organization or continuing an organization, you always have to look at the opportunities you have and to see if there are other opportunities across the board. We realized that Cell Phones for Soldiers would not last if it were just to send prepaid phone cards. There's a lot of new technology. Of course, we're talking through Google Plus right now. There's a lot of technology that's overseas that these men and women can start to use Skype a lot. So we are finding that there's not as much of a demand for these phone cards. And so that's why when the Iraq War ended, we found it was our best opportunity to continue to support the troops and let them know that we are here to support them when they come home. There's a huge number of men and women who are coming home that need our help, that can benefit from our program. And AT&T gave us $450,000 to start that organization. So we were, the snowball was already rolling, and we are very blessed that we were able to work with a company like AT&T, and they have supported us for years. And so that's why we wanted to start helping Heroes Home.
Awesome. And so can you tell, so these are all high school students from
Yes.
freshmen to seniors, and can you tell from your perspective as an entrepreneur who does a social good, like how that's helped you personally, not just the good that you've done, but can you tell me some ways that you've benefited from being involved in this organization and starting it?
Well, there's a lot of benefits. I mean, starting your own organization, it really teaches you the ins and outs of business and what's going on in the world. It really allows you, if you start an organization, you really run with it and you continue with it and you are passionate about it, it can take you anywhere. I mean, if you start something positive in your own community and it branches out, you could travel all the way across the world. I've been blessed that I could be able to go to Germany and a few other places around the world. I've traveled to almost anywhere in the United States, and there's a lot of opportunities when you have the ability to start an organization and you're able to support a lot of people. There's a lot to benefit yourself as well. And I think the best benefit for me is the emails I get from the soldiers, having them contact me and say that they were able to use my phone cards to call their loved ones on Thanksgiving or Christmas. The benefit, I definitely get more out of it than they get out of my phone cards and the organization. And at the end of the day, it's very positive for myself and for my family. We've been very blessed. But there's a lot. You can also get scholarships and grants, and there's endless possibilities. There's a lot of positives for starting an organization. Don't think that it's just you giving your time. You're also getting a lot back from it.
And did this help you at college anyway?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I'm taking all my business classes right now. I'm taking my management, my marketing, and my finance classes, and nonprofit, social entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of correlations between what I started and what is being taught in my business classes. So I almost feel like it's review, and that's almost better for me to learn because I've already gone through it, and I can, what they're teaching in class, the concepts they're teaching in class, I can relate to with my own experiences. It's already happened in my life, and so I can be like, oh, well, they're talking about this in finance. Well, we had to create this type of litigation, and we had to go through this process in order to get this done. And so there's a lot of correlations between what I study in college and what I've been able to do with Cell Phones for Soldiers.
All right, cool. So now I'm going to open this up for questions. We have about like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
So does anybody in Cincinnati want to come up and ask Robbie a question?
Don't be shy.
Okay, do any other cities want to ask a question? Columbus, Cleveland, Dayton, Toledo?
I can field some college questions if you have any, if you guys are nervous.
Oh, Sarah, do you have? Oh, we got one?
Yeah. Dayton has a question.
Okay.
I want to know, like, you going for your business, right? Like,
Yes.
you going for your MBA in business, right?
MBA is master's. Currently, I'm an undergrad, and my major is actually sport management, so I'll be focusing on sports. But if I were to take an MBA, I might even focus on international business. So, it's not settled yet, but right now I'm a sport management undergrad.
All right, now, like, what was your encounters like? You say you gonna do it now, but like what's your encounters of actually like was there any challenging thing, like any challenging subject that you could not couldn't handle, but also like was like troublesome for you?
Throughout the program, I mean, there were a lot of speed bumps. That's a good question. There were a lot of speed bumps. There were a lot of times where my sister and I wanted to stop. We had kids making fun of us in middle school, saying we were the cell phone kids, and that got to us, and that really dug into us. And so, that was tough. And there were a lot of times where, we just wanted to stop, and our parents were able to tell us and motivate us to keep going. I mean, when we first started this program, we called it Cellphones for Soldiers, and people associated that with old cell phones. And we wanted to put minutes on those phones and send them over to Iraq and Afghanistan. And we got a call from the Pentagon to our house. My dad picked up that call. Came up as 0 on the caller ID, and he picked up the call, and they were like, you guys can't be doing this. You can't. It's a security hazard. If you call from a cell phone overseas, you can be triangulated by insurgents. They can find out your exact location from where you called on that cell phone. So what we were doing was a national security hazard, and that was a time when we had 5,000 cell phones and we didn't know what to do with them. We wanted to, pack it up. We were like, this isn't going to work. But we, like I was saying, when you find opportunities, it can go across the board. So what we did is we took those cell phones and we recycled them, and we basically tapped into a medium of exchange by recycling used cell phones that nobody had ever tapped into on the nonprofit level. You see companies now that 8, 10 years later that are doing it, and they're recycling phones in order to make a profit, but nobody was doing that. And 500 million cell phones will be sold this year in the United States alone. Almost 400 million will be decommissioned, which means that they'll no longer be in use, especially with the iPhone 5 coming out. We were just in USA Today yesterday because we were listed as one of the 5 organizations to give your cell phone to. So I mean, there's a lot of possibility, and you always got to keep looking for options and opportunities, and that's what we've been doing for the past 8 years. But good question, thank you.
Well, the only reason I was asking you this was because I was going for my MBA as well. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely encourage it. I mean, the possibilities are endless when you have your college degree, when you have an MBA. That's going to set you off great. And in this day and age, there's a lot of competitive industries. It's definitely necessary to have.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Any other questions? Jamie, do you have one? Okay, unmute yourself.
Okay, come on. Hi. I was wondering how in high school with starting such a large program you were able to manage your time like with school and all the other aspects of life.
Well, it's been pretty tough. I played college soccer. I played soccer all through high school, and I played Division I soccer here at UMass where I go to school. But I ended up having to quit because it was just too demanding. I was traveling a lot with Cellphones for Soldiers, and I was trying to play my favorite sport. But you learn time management, especially when you go to college. You're going to have the opportunity to slack off and, get into some social activities that you shouldn't be getting into. And there's a lot of time between class. You guys are in class all day from 7 to 3.